West Africa's wildlife sanctuary turns into a hotbed of transnational crime. A critical analysis. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, your go-to channel for in-depth analysis and critical conversations on Africa's most pressing issues. In today's video, we're uncovering the alarming transformation of the W-Arly-Pendjari complex from a revered wildlife sanctuary into a battleground for transnational crime and extremist violence. Stay tuned as we break down the complex factors at play and explore potential solutions for this growing crisis. The W-Arly-Pendjari WAP Complex, an expansive and pristine wildlife sanctuary spanning the borders of Benin, Burkina Faso, and Niger, is one of West Africa's most precious ecosystems. As a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the WAP complex is home to endangered species such as the cheetah, giraffe, wild dog, elephant, lion, and leopard. The region's vast natural resources have long made it a focal point for conservation efforts and a source of pride for local communities. However, despite its status as an ecological treasure, the WAP is increasingly becoming a breeding ground for illicit activities, such as arms trafficking, drug smuggling, human trafficking, and terrorism. The complex's remote landscape, spanning over 1 million hectares, has become a strategic hub for transnational crime, facilitated by its rugged terrain and porous borders. Local and international criminal organizations exploit the sanctuary's vastness and lack of surveillance to transport illicit goods and weaponry. The proliferation of arms in the region has serious implications for regional stability as it feeds into the Sahel's ongoing conflicts, heightening insecurity and fostering the conditions for extremist groups to thrive. A growing nexus of arms, trafficking, and extremist violence. The WAP complex is increasingly entwined in the Sahelian region's cycle of violence. According to Dr. Juliana Abena-Appiah, a renowned expert from the University of Ghana's Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, arms trafficking has become one of the most pervasive illegal activities in the area. The proliferation of assault rifles, light machine guns, and pistols, particularly the AK-47, favored for its portability and firepower, facilitates not only poaching and banditry, but also serves to fuel jihadist insurgencies and ethnic conflicts. As regional researcher Hassane Kone from the Institute for Security Studies notes, the arms trade in the WAP region is primarily driven by 5 extremist groups: Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, Ansarul Islam, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and Islamic State Sahel Province. These groups exploit weak state security systems, benefiting from the region's porous borders and the corruptibility of local officials, law enforcement, and armed forces. The trafficking of arms through the WAP is often done by professional transporters, former militants, and corrupt security agents, using motorbikes and animal caravans to navigate the rough terrain. The flow of these arms is facilitated by several factors, including the diversion of weapons from poorly guarded stockpiles, especially in Benin, and the region's strategic position as a transit route for arms coming from Libya en route to Mali. Arms trafficking serves as a lifeline to extremist groups that are waging violent campaigns across the Sahel, and despite international interventions, these networks remain resilient. International and regional responses. A mixed record. Over the years, the international community and regional governments have launched several initiatives to stem the tide of arms trafficking and mitigate the insecurity in the WAP complex. The United Nations, with the support of ECOWAS, deployed the multidimensional integrated stabilization mission in Mali, MINUSMA, in 2013 to combat terrorism and arms trafficking. At the same time, the Lake Chad Basin Commission and the African Union reactivated the Multinational Joint Task Force, MNJTF, a military coalition aimed at securing the region and addressing cross-border crimes. However, as highlighted by analyst Fidel Amaki Owusu, these efforts have been insufficient to address the root causes of instability. The MNJTF remains active but operates at a low capacity due to challenges such as limited resources and a lack of coordination. The formation of the G5 Sahel Force in 2017, a coalition of Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger was initially hailed as a promising solution to Sahelian instability. However, accusations of French dominance and the subsequent withdrawal of member states from the force in 2023 have undermined its effectiveness. Mali's pivot toward Russia's Wagner Group in an effort to curb extremism and arms trafficking has only worsened the situation, with arms trafficking through the WAP continuing unabated. Despite these setbacks, some positive initiatives have emerged. In 2017, the Accra Initiative was launched by West African states to combat terrorism spilling over from the Sahel into coastal regions. The initiative fosters joint military operations and intelligence sharing among Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Togo, with the support of regional and international partners. The project's success, however, is contingent on the continued cooperation of member states and sustained funding. The socioeconomic drivers of insecurity. Addressing the root causes. A critical flaw in the region's approach to combat arms trafficking and insecurity in the WAP complex is its overwhelming focus on militarized responses. As Dr. Edmund Foley, head of public law at Ghana's Institute of Management and Public Administration, points out, efforts to combat arms trafficking and extremism must also tackle the underlying social and economic vulnerabilities that fuel these activities. These include high levels of youth unemployment, food insecurity, and the adverse effects of climate change, all of which exacerbate the conditions in which criminal networks and extremist groups thrive. One promising initiative to address these vulnerabilities is the Sahel Resilience Project, an ambitious regional development plan aimed at tackling the interconnected challenges of youth unemployment, climate change, and food insecurity. While the project faces significant hurdles, such as slow disbursement of funds, interagency coordination issues, and ongoing security threats, it offers a pathway forward in addressing the root causes of insecurity in the region. A comprehensive approach that combines security measures with long-term development strategies could provide a more sustainable solution to the crisis in the WAP complex. However, as the situation in the WAP and the Sahel highlights, resolving the region's security challenges requires coordinated efforts across multiple levels: local, national, regional, and international. The deepening involvement of regional actors such as Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, as well as the continued focus on intelligence sharing and joint military operations, is essential. Yet, the international community must also recognize that true stability will only be achieved if it addresses the drivers of conflict, such as poverty, governance deficits, and climate change, alongside more traditional security measures. Moving forward, strengthening regional cooperation. The WAP complex is emblematic of the complex challenges facing West Africa in the 21st century. The region's biodiversity, while under threat, is also deeply intertwined with the region's security, governance, and development trajectories. As such, addressing the illicit trafficking and terrorism that plague the WAP will require more than just military action. It will require a multifaceted approach that strengthens governance, promotes social cohesion, and tackles the economic drivers of insecurity. Regional cooperation is key to this process, as is the effective use of intelligence and the support of international partners. Strengthening the capacity of countries to control their borders, manage arms stockpiles, and address corruption will be essential in stemming the flow of weapons into the region. At the same time, addressing the socioeconomic vulnerabilities of local communities, particularly through initiatives like the Sahel Resilience Project, will help reduce the demand for illicit activities and promote long-term peace and stability. While international efforts to combat arms trafficking and extremism in the WAP complex have achieved some success, much more needs to be done. The complex web of local conflicts, transnational crime, and extremist violence in the region requires a concerted and holistic response. By strengthening regional cooperation, addressing the social and economic drivers of insecurity, and prioritizing sustainable development alongside security interventions, there is hope that the WAP Complex can once again become a sanctuary for wildlife and people alike, expanding regional cooperation and the role of international partners. The role of regional cooperation in addressing the transnational criminal activities in the WAP Complex cannot be overstated. Initiatives such as the Accra Initiative and the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, comprising Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, have shown the potential for coordinated efforts. However, these initiatives face critical challenges, including inconsistent political will and lack of sufficient resources. The situation has worsened as these countries have distanced themselves from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, in the wake of military coups and tensions with Western powers. Despite these setbacks, regional cooperation remains a crucial pillar for addressing the broader issues of arms trafficking and terrorism in the WAP. Local partnerships between the countries that share the WAP complex must be prioritized. Strengthening cross-border cooperation for intelligence sharing, coordinated border patrols, and the creation of joint task forces will be essential in curbing the movement of illicit arms and reducing the operational space for extremist groups. The successful model of the Lake Chad Basin Commission's Multinational Joint Task Force, MNJTF, which has brought together Benin, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria to tackle trans-border crimes and insurgencies, demonstrates the potential of such regional cooperation. Despite challenges, such as Niger's recent withdrawal after the July 2023 coup, the MNJTF model offers critical lessons for cooperation within the WAP region. Strengthening these cross-border military alliances and ensuring consistent engagement with the local populations will also be vital for the long-term success of any counterterrorism or anti-criminal initiatives. Furthermore, regional organizations like ECOWAS must adapt their approach to include more comprehensive development strategies. While the ECOWAS peacekeeping mission in Mali, MINUSMA, and the deployment of the G5 Sahel force aimed at combating jihadist insurgencies in the region represented significant efforts, they were focused primarily on military solutions. A broader regional strategy that integrates security, development, and governance reforms will be essential in addressing the root causes of the instability that fuel the crime networks operating within the WAP complex. The role of international partners, assessing the efficacy of Western support. International partners, particularly Western nations, have been active players in the efforts to combat transnational crime and terrorism in the Sahel. France's military presence, including Operation Barkhane and the G5 Sahel force, was initially lauded for its efforts to curb the spread of extremist violence. However, the withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from the G5 Sahel force, coupled with growing anti-Western sentiments in the region, has raised significant questions about the long-term efficacy of Western-backed interventions in the WAP complex. The shifting alliances in the region, with countries like Mali turning to Russia's Wagner Group for military support, are indicative of the evolving geopolitical landscape. This development signals a broader shift in the region's security architecture, where countries increasingly seek alternatives to Western-backed solutions. While Russia's engagement may offer temporary relief for some states, it raises concerns about the long-term sustainability of such partnerships and the potential for further destabilization in the region. The rise of mercenary groups, while providing immediate military support, often lacks the broader developmental and diplomatic support necessary to achieve lasting peace. As the conflict in the Sahel intensifies, international support must recalibrate to meet the changing political dynamics. The focus should shift from militarized responses to more inclusive strategies that support local governance, promote peace-building efforts, and address human security concerns. A greater emphasis should be placed on addressing the needs of the local population, especially youth, who are vulnerable to radicalization due to the lack of economic opportunities and access to education. The United States, a major donor to counterterrorism initiatives in Africa, must also reevaluate its approach. As Western countries pull back from direct military involvement, there is a need to reimagine the role of international partnerships in the WAP region. Engaging African-led initiatives and supporting regional solutions will be more effective than imposing external solutions that fail to resonate with local realities. The Sahel Resilience Project, an opportunity for long-term solutions. Amidst the ongoing crises in the WAP Complex and the broader Sahel region, the Sahel Resilience Project stands out as a potential model for addressing the intersection of security, development, and environmental challenges. This ambitious initiative aims to tackle the root causes of insecurity, including youth unemployment, climate change, and food insecurity. By addressing the interconnected issues that fuel conflict, the project seeks to create a more resilient and stable environment in the region. However, as highlighted earlier, the Sahel Resilience Project faces significant challenges in its implementation. Slow disbursement of funds, coordination issues between implementing partners, and security threats continue to hamper its progress. The complexity of Sahel's political, economic, and social landscape requires a multifaceted approach, one that balances the need for security with long-term development goals. In the WAP Complex, the project's goals align with the need for increased community involvement, especially in vulnerable rural areas. The inclusion of local stakeholders, traditional leaders, and grassroots organizations in peace-building efforts is vital for ensuring that the benefits of the project reach the communities most affected by the illicit activities in the region. Moreover, the project's emphasis on sustainable agricultural practices and climate change adaptation could mitigate some of the environmental factors that contribute to the insecurity in WAP. The success of the Sahel Resilience Project is contingent on overcoming the challenges of implementation. However, if it can overcome these hurdles, it offers a pathway to more sustainable peace in the WAP complex and beyond. Addressing the underlying socio-economic conditions that fuel insecurity in the region will be crucial for breaking the cycle of violence and illicit trafficking. The future of the WAP complex, a crossroads. The W-Arly-Pendjari complex stands at a crossroads. Its future, both as a wildlife sanctuary and as a region vulnerable to organized crime, will depend on the collective efforts of national governments, regional organizations, international partners, and local communities. The current trajectory of insecurity, fueled by arms trafficking, extremist violence, and transnational criminal networks, poses a significant threat to the region's stability. However, there is hope that with sustained effort, collaborative action, and a more comprehensive approach, the WAP complex can once again become a symbol of resilience, both for West Africa's wildlife and its people. The WAP complex's transformation from a conservation haven to a hotspot for transnational crime underscores the complex challenges facing the region. While the immediate focus must remain on curbing the flow of illicit arms and combating terrorism, long-term solutions must address the socio-economic conditions that perpetuate instability. Regional cooperation, combined with international support and local engagement, remains the key to addressing these multifaceted challenges and building a more peaceful and resilient WAP complex. The security, stability, and preservation of the WAP complex depend on an integrated approach that incorporates both security measures and development strategies. By addressing the root causes of instability, poverty, youth unemployment, corruption, and climate change, the region can begin to move toward a more sustainable future. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but with the right interventions, there is hope that the WAP complex can regain its status as a wildlife sanctuary and contribute to a more peaceful and secure Sahel. Addressing the role of local communities in combating crime. Local communities in the WAP complex and surrounding regions are crucial stakeholders in both the challenges and solutions to the ongoing crisis. Often, these communities are the most vulnerable to the impacts of armed violence, but they also play an important role in stabilizing their surroundings. Without their active engagement and support, external security interventions are likely to fall short. Community-based approaches to security and resilience are gaining traction as part of the broader strategy to tackle transnational crime and instability in the WAP region. Initiatives that include local people in decision-making processes, such as participatory governance and community policing, have shown promise in other conflict-affected regions. Engaging with local leaders, elderly, and youth groups to foster a sense of ownership over their security and environment is essential for long-term peacebuilding. Additionally, improving access to education and employment opportunities for youth, especially in rural areas surrounding the WAP complex, is a crucial step in curbing the appeal of criminal networks and extremist ideologies. Vulnerable populations are often drawn into illicit activities due to a lack of viable alternatives, and addressing their socio-economic needs is key to undermining criminal groups. Initiatives like microfinance schemes, vocational training programs, and agricultural projects can help provide economic stability and reduce the desperation that fuels criminal involvement. The inclusion of women in peacebuilding efforts should not be overlooked. As primary caretakers of families and community members, women often possess valuable insights and influence that can drive change at the grassroots level. By empowering women and giving them a seat at the table in local governance, peace negotiations, and community initiatives, a more holistic and effective approach to combating transnational crime and violence can be achieved. This is especially important in regions like the WAP, where traditional gender roles have historically placed women at the center of family and community welfare. The environmental consequences of armed conflict in the WAP complex. Beyond the direct effects of violence and crime, the ongoing instability in the WAP complex has profound environmental consequences. The rampant poaching of endangered species, driven by arms trafficking and organized criminal syndicates, is severely threatening the region's rich biodiversity. Species like elephants, giraffes, and lions, which play a critical role in maintaining the ecological balance of the area, are now at risk due to the influx of weapons used by poachers. The degradation of the environment is not just an ecological concern, but also a socio-economic one. The WAP complex's wildlife and natural resources are vital for local livelihoods, particularly for those involved in tourism, agriculture, and subsistence farming. As poaching and illegal mining increase, communities that depend on these resources for their survival are facing significant challenges. The erosion of the region's environmental capital could, in turn, exacerbate poverty and food insecurity, further fueling local grievances and contributing to a vicious cycle of conflict and instability. To address these environmental challenges, it is crucial to integrate conservation efforts with the broader security and development strategies for the WAP complex. Efforts to curb poaching must be combined with a commitment to environmental stewardship, land management, and sustainable agriculture. This will ensure that the natural resources of the region are preserved for future generations, while also providing an economic foundation for communities to thrive. The role of wildlife rangers and conservationists is central to maintaining the integrity of the WAP complex. However, these individuals are often under-resourced, underpaid, and subjected to significant danger as they attempt to curb poaching and illegal resource extraction. Supporting and equipping these rangers with the necessary tools, training, and security protection is essential to ensuring the success of conservation efforts in the region. The role of technology in monitoring and managing the WAP complex. Technological advancements in monitoring, surveillance, and data management can provide new solutions to the challenges of controlling crime in the WAP complex. Remote sensing technologies, such as satellite imagery and drone surveillance, can help to monitor illegal activities in real time, allowing for faster responses by law enforcement and conservation teams. These technologies can also aid in mapping wildlife migration patterns, monitoring deforestation, and tracking the movement of illicit goods and weapons across the borders of the WAP complex. Technology can also support intelligence sharing networks across national borders. With the right infrastructure in place, security forces and conservationists can share data on criminal activities, trafficking routes, and extremist movements, helping to coordinate efforts and identify high-risk areas. In addition to enhancing operational efficiency, technology can help improve transparency and accountability in managing resources within the WAP complex, ensuring that local governments and international partners are held responsible for the protection of the sanctuary. However, the use of technology in these contexts comes with its own set of challenges. Access to reliable internet and communication networks in remote areas can be a limiting factor. Furthermore, technological solutions must be integrated into broader governance frameworks that include local communities, government officials, and international partners. Without the active involvement of all stakeholders, technological interventions risk being undermined or misused. The need for comprehensive policy reforms. One of the most critical elements in addressing the challenges in the WAP complex is the need for comprehensive policy reforms at both the national and regional levels. Security measures, development initiatives, and environmental protection efforts must be coordinated through robust policy frameworks that account for the interconnected nature of these issues. At present, the region suffers from fragmented and siloed responses, where security interventions are prioritized over development and governance reforms. To address this gap, regional bodies like ECOWAS and the African Union, in partnership with international organizations, should focus on fostering inclusive policy dialogues that involve all sectors of society. These dialogues should prioritize holistic strategies that recognize the interconnectedness of security, governance, economic development, and environmental conservation. For instance, national policies on arms control should align with broader strategies to promote good governance, human rights, and the rule of law. Additionally, stronger accountability mechanisms must be put in place to ensure that policies are implemented effectively. This includes better oversight of international aid programs, more stringent monitoring of arms exports and imports, and transparent reporting on progress toward peace-building goals. Governments and international partners should also work together to address corruption, which undermines efforts to control illicit activities and strengthen the rule of law in the region. As the situation in the WAP complex continues to evolve, there is a critical need for a new paradigm in policymaking, one that recognizes the complex, multifaceted nature of the challenges at hand and promotes integrated solutions across sectors. Only through such comprehensive reforms will the region be able to move towards a more secure, stable, and prosperous future. Reimagining international support for the WAP complex. International support, while critical in the fight against transnational crime and insecurity in the WAP complex, needs to evolve in response to the shifting dynamics of the region. As African countries increasingly seek to manage their own security and governance issues, international actors must reconsider their approach to intervention. The growing resentment toward Western influence, exemplified by the recent withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from the G5 Sahel force, signals a need for international support to be more inclusive, respectful of regional autonomy, and responsive to the demands of local populations. One possible way forward is to strengthen African-led solutions that are supported by international partnerships. The role of African organizations such as ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Sahel Alliance should be reinforced with adequate resources and technical support, ensuring that they are the primary drivers of peace-building, conflict resolution, and security efforts. International support, including financial aid, training, and technology transfer, should be provided in a manner that respects the sovereignty of African states and aligns with their long-term developmental goals. For instance, the United Nations and the European Union could play a more advisory role, providing technical expertise and funding for regional peace-building initiatives, while allowing African nations to take the lead in operationalizing and implementing these solutions. This approach would not only enhance the effectiveness of interventions, but also promote ownership and long-term sustainability by building local capacity. Moreover, international donors must broaden their support beyond security-related efforts to encompass wider development objectives such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Given the deep connection between socioeconomic vulnerabilities and insecurity in the WAP region, any sustainable solution will require long-term development investments that directly benefit local communities. By improving access to basic services, creating employment opportunities, and addressing the effects of climate change, International partners can help reduce the underlying factors that fuel instability and provide communities with the tools to resist criminal organizations and extremist ideologies. Bridging the gap between security and development. The challenge of balancing security with development in the WAP complex is not unique to this region, but is a common dilemma across Africa. Too often, security interventions have been militarized without addressing the underlying economic and social issues that sustain criminal activities. A holistic approach that integrates security measures with socio-economic development is crucial for breaking the vicious cycle of violence, poverty, and crime. A successful model for such an approach can be found in the work of international organizations such as the World Bank and the African Development Bank, which have been increasingly focusing on the nexus between security and development. By investing in initiatives that promote economic growth, improve education and vocational training, and foster youth engagement, these institutions have demonstrated that development-focused interventions can complement security efforts. In the context of the WAP complex, similar programs could help provide economic alternatives to local populations involved in illicit activities. Sustainable livelihoods initiatives, such as ecotourism, community farming, and small-scale wildlife conservation, could create employment opportunities while contributing to the preservation of the region's biodiversity. Such programs should also be aligned with the global push for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, which aim to reduce inequality, promote peace, and ensure environmental sustainability. Furthermore, addressing the environmental degradation caused by illegal activities, such as deforestation, poaching, and unregulated resource extraction, should be prioritized within broader development strategies. Restoring ecosystems, promoting sustainable agriculture, and reducing dependence on extractive industries are all essential elements in building resilience and ensuring the long-term viability of the WAP complex. The importance of local and international partnerships in conservation efforts. Conservation efforts in the WAP complex require a collaborative approach that involves a range of stakeholders, including local communities, government agencies, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and international partners. While national governments are responsible for enacting and enforcing policies that protect the environment, local communities must also play an active role in safeguarding the region's natural resources. Community-based conservation programs that involve local stakeholders in the management of natural resources have proven to be effective in other parts of Africa. These initiatives allow communities to directly benefit from conservation efforts, whether through revenue from ecotourism or the sustainable use of natural resources. In the WAP complex, such programs could be expanded to involve local people in anti-poaching efforts, land management, and the monitoring of wildlife populations. Furthermore, local conservation groups can play a critical role in raising awareness about the importance of protecting the WAP complex's biodiversity. Working alongside schools, local governments, and international organizations, these groups can help build a culture of conservation that prioritizes environmental sustainability and community well-being. At the same time, international NGOs and conservation organizations such as the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, African Wildlife Foundation, AAWF, and the Wildlife Conservation Society, a WCS, can provide technical expertise, funding, and advocacy to support conservation programs in the WAP. Their global networks and resources can help raise international awareness about the threats facing the WAP complex and mobilize funding for long-term preservation efforts. It is also crucial that international conservation organizations work closely with regional bodies and national governments to align their goals with broader regional strategies. Integrating wildlife conservation efforts into national security and development frameworks will ensure that the protection of the WAP complex is not seen as an isolated effort, but as part of a holistic approach to regional stability. Regional and international challenges in peacebuilding. Despite the growing number of initiatives aimed at addressing the multiple crises in the WAP complex and the Sahel region, significant challenges remain. The recent political instability in countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger has complicated efforts to forge lasting peace and stability in the region. These countries' shifts towards more authoritarian governments and their withdrawal from ECOWAS and the G5 Sahel force signal a growing disconnect between the region's leadership and the international community. The political transitions in these countries have also created power vacuums, which criminal organizations and extremist groups have exploited. With regional organizations such as ECOWAS struggling to maintain influence in the face of political upheaval, the role of international organizations and bilateral partners becomes even more critical in ensuring that peace-building efforts continue. The need for flexible and adaptive approaches that respect the political realities of each country while maintaining a focus on regional stability is paramount. Moreover, the ongoing security challenges in the Sahel make it difficult to provide long-term solutions to the WAP Complex's issues. The presence of extremist groups, the flow of illicit arms, and the economic challenges faced by local populations continue to undermine efforts at peace-building. While international and regional actors can provide support, they must work in tandem with local populations to create sustainable solutions that address both security and socio-economic concerns. In this context, building peace in the WAP complex will require a concerted effort from local, regional, and international actors, each playing a complementary role in addressing the region's complex challenges. This includes building political will, fostering dialogue, and prioritizing long-term investments in human development, security, and environmental protection. Integrating climate change adaptation into the peace-building agenda. The interconnectedness of climate change, insecurity, and human development cannot be ignored when addressing the challenges facing the WAP complex and the broader Sahel region. Climate change exacerbates existing vulnerabilities, particularly in rural and impoverished areas, where droughts, erratic rainfall, and rising temperatures disrupt agricultural livelihoods and contribute to food insecurity. The consequences of these environmental changes fuel displacement, conflict over scarce resources, and an increase in crime as communities scramble for survival. These environmental stresses are also key drivers of migration, particularly among young people, who may resort to joining criminal or extremist groups out of desperation or a lack of alternatives. To address this, it is essential to integrate climate change adaptation measures into the peace-building and development agendas for the WAP region. Local communities must be supported with knowledge and resources to better adapt to changing weather patterns, including drought-resistant agricultural practices, water management systems, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Additionally, strengthening environmental governance and natural resource management can reduce the pressures that drive conflict, such as disputes over land use or access to water. The Sahel Resilience Project, with its focus on tackling interconnected challenges such as climate change, food insecurity, and youth unemployment, offers a promising model for addressing these issues. By addressing both the environmental and socioeconomic impacts of climate change, the project could help mitigate one of the primary drivers of instability in the region. However, the project's success will depend on a concerted effort to address the institutional and logistical barriers that currently hinder effective climate adaptation and disaster preparedness in the region. In the WAP complex, climate adaptation efforts should include promoting sustainable land use practices that preserve the biodiversity of the area while providing livelihoods for local communities. Reforestation, agroforestry, and sustainable grazing methods could help restore degraded lands and mitigate the impacts of climate change. Furthermore, integrating these strategies with conservation efforts will ensure that environmental sustainability is not treated as a separate issue from regional security and development, but as an integral part of the solution. The role of youth in shaping the future of the WAP complex. One of the most promising ways to address the ongoing security challenges in the WAP complex is to engage the region's youth in meaningful ways. Young people are not only the future leaders of the region, but are also currently being recruited by criminal and extremist groups due to a lack of opportunities and the pressures of survival. However, the youth population can also serve as a powerful force for positive change, especially if they are given access to education, vocational training, and employment opportunities. Youth involvement in community-based peace-building and environmental conservation efforts is crucial for sustainable solutions in the WAP region. Programs that encourage youth leadership, provide skills training, and foster civic engagement can create a generation of young people who are actively working to preserve their environment and prevent the spread of criminality and extremism. Educational campaigns that promote peace, tolerance, and environmental stewardship can also help counter the narratives pushed by extremist groups and organized crime syndicates. Several programs aimed at engaging youth in peace building have already been implemented in parts of West Africa, showing the positive impact of youth empowerment on security and stability. In the WAP region, similar initiatives could be expanded to involve young people in wildlife conservation efforts, land management, and anti-poaching activities. By empowering youth to take ownership of their environment and security, these programs could create a sense of collective responsibility and unity among communities, which is essential for long-term peace building. At the regional level, governments and international organizations must also invest in the development of youth-centric policies that address the root causes of instability, such as poverty, lack of education, and limited job opportunities. By providing young people with a stake in the future of their communities, the likelihood of their involvement in criminal or extremist activities will decrease, paving the way for more peaceful and prosperous futures. Cross-border collaboration and the need for regional integration. The challenges facing the WAP complex transcend national borders, making cross-border collaboration a critical component of any effective solution. The porous borders between Benin, Burkina Faso, and Niger create opportunities for criminal organizations and insurgent groups to operate with impunity, undermining the efforts of national governments to secure the region. To counter this, there is a pressing need for stronger regional integration, which would facilitate better coordination, intelligence sharing, and joint security operations. Regional bodies such as ECOWAS and the African Union must work to create a more cohesive framework for addressing cross-border crimes, with a focus on strengthening border control mechanisms and promoting cooperation between security forces. One potential model is the creation of cross-border security zones where joint military and law enforcement operations can target criminal groups operating in multiple countries. These zones could also be used to share information on trafficking routes, extremist movements, and the locations of illicit arms caches. The challenges in the WAP complex also highlight the importance of regional integration in broader governance efforts. By promoting closer ties between neighboring countries and encouraging the exchange of best practices in governance, security, and development, regional actors can build a stronger foundation for long-term peace and stability. Regional integration initiatives, such as those under the African Union's Agenda 2063, which envisions a peaceful, prosperous, and integrated Africa, must focus on addressing shared challenges in ways that benefit all member states. A strong, integrated regional security architecture is essential for managing the complex threats facing the WAP complex and the wider Sahel region. The creation of mechanisms for joint conflict prevention, early warning systems, and coordinated crisis response would ensure that regional actors are better equipped to handle the multidimensional challenges that threaten the stability of the region. Moreover, regional collaboration would also allow for a more sustainable response to the environmental degradation and climate challenges that exacerbate insecurity in the WAP region. The future of the WAP complex. Collaborative, holistic solutions. The future of the WAP complex lies in the collaborative efforts of all stakeholders: local communities, national governments, regional organizations, and international partners, working together to address the region's complex challenges. While the WAP complex has become a symbol of the broader struggles facing the Sahel and West Africa, it also represents an opportunity for innovative solutions that integrate security, development, environmental conservation, and social stability. building a comprehensive strategy that includes enhanced border security, adaptation of climate change, economic development, and youth empowerment can help break the cycle of conflict and criminality. By strengthening regional cooperation and fostering international partnerships, there is potential to transform the WAP complex into a model of resilience and peace, a place where biodiversity and communities can thrive in harmony. The road to stability in the WAP region is long and fraught with challenges, but it is possible with sustained commitment and a collective approach that addresses both the immediate security concerns and the deeper socio-economic issues that underlie the current crises. In the coming years, the region must focus on long-term solutions, integrating security efforts with development initiatives that prioritize the well-being of local populations while ensuring the protection of the environment. The success of these efforts will depend on the willingness of all actors to cooperate, innovate, and invest in the future of the WAP complex, its people, and its wildlife. Leveraging the power of education and awareness for lasting change. One of the most effective long-term strategies for addressing the challenges in the WAP complex is through education and awareness. A well-educated population is more likely to engage in peaceful, sustainable practices and less likely to be drawn into the criminal networks that exploit the region's vulnerabilities. Educating local communities about the long-term environmental, social, and economic benefits of preserving the WAP's biodiversity could foster stronger community support for conservation and anti-trafficking efforts. Local schools, universities, and community centers can serve as critical hubs for promoting conservation education. This could include workshops on the importance of wildlife preservation, the negative impacts of poaching, and the value of the region's natural resources for future generations. By including environmental studies in school curriculums, governments can create an informed generation of young people who are motivated to protect the region's ecosystems and take leadership roles in future peace-building and development efforts. Additionally, raising awareness about the link between arms trafficking, terrorism, and environmental degradation can help communities recognize the broader consequences of illicit activities. Social media, radio campaigns, and community meetings could be used as platforms to spread this message and mobilize local action against these destructive practices. Involving traditional and religious leaders in awareness campaigns can also be effective, given their influence in many West African communities. Furthermore, regional and international actors should support the capacity building of local NGOs and civil society organizations that are already working on the ground. These groups often have in-depth knowledge of local dynamics and are better positioned to implement tailored solutions to address the specific needs of the WAP complex's diverse communities. By strengthening their capacity, both financially and through training, these organizations can play a central role in advocating policies that prioritize both security and sustainable development. Strengthening legal frameworks and justice systems. Another crucial aspect of stabilizing the WAP complex is strengthening legal frameworks and justice systems. While regional security efforts are essential, they must be complemented by a robust legal framework capable of holding criminals accountable and ensuring the protection of human rights. This includes ensuring that the rule of law is upheld and that corrupt practices within the security sector are addressed. One major challenge to the effectiveness of legal systems in the region is the lack of resources and training for law enforcement agencies, coupled with political interference and corruption. Governments in the WAP region must invest in the professionalization of their security forces, providing training on human rights, law enforcement best practices, and how to combat illicit activities such as arms trafficking, poaching, and human trafficking. International organizations, such as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, can assist in strengthening judicial and legal systems through capacity-building programs, the provision of technical expertise, and the promotion of international legal cooperation. The focus should be on building local justice mechanisms that respect local customs and traditions while ensuring the implementation of international legal standards. Moreover, strengthening anti-corruption measures is vital. Corruption within law enforcement agencies, customs, and government bodies enables illegal activities to thrive. By supporting efforts to build more transparent, accountable, and efficient institutions, regional and international partners can help reduce the opportunities for corruption and ensure that the justice system is an effective deterrent against transnational crime. A focus on improving access to justice for all citizens is also necessary, especially for marginalized groups who may not have the means to navigate formal legal systems. Promoting legal aid services and strengthening community-based justice mechanisms can ensure that all people in the WAP region have access to fair treatment and legal recourse. The role of technology in strengthening regional security technology, when used strategically, can significantly improve regional security and environmental protection efforts in the WAP complex. Advances in data collection, monitoring, and surveillance have already been successfully used in other parts of Africa to combat poaching and arms trafficking. For example, technologies such as satellite imagery and drones can be used to monitor wildlife movements, track illegal logging activities, and detect illegal arms shipments. In the context of the WAP complex, these tools could play a critical role in providing real-time data on illicit activities and enabling faster, more coordinated responses. Integrating technology into security efforts can help overcome the challenges posed by the complex, often difficult to navigate terrain in the region. Additionally, technological tools can also be used to monitor environmental conditions, allowing for the early detection of threats to the WAP's ecosystems, such as deforestation or illegal mining. Furthermore, digital platforms and databases can be used to enhance intelligence sharing between governments and international partners. The establishment of a regional security database that tracks the movement of arms, wildlife, and human traffickers can provide valuable insights into criminal networks operating across borders. Such a platform would also allow for better coordination between local authorities, regional security forces, and international agencies, improving the efficacy of operations targeting criminal networks. It is essential, however, that these technological solutions are implemented in a way that is both practical and sustainable. Local communities must be involved in the adoption of these technologies, and their privacy and security must be safeguarded. Additionally, building the necessary infrastructure to support such initiatives, particularly in remote areas of the WAP complex, will require significant investment. The need for long-term investment in resilient infrastructure. Another critical component of ensuring the long-term stability of the WAP complex and surrounding regions is the development of resilient infrastructure. Given the region's vulnerability to climate change and the need for improved connectivity between countries, investing in infrastructure that supports both security and development objectives is vital. Building better roads, bridges, and communication networks will not only enhance the capacity of law enforcement agencies and conservationists to patrol the area, but also facilitate the movement of goods and services across the region. Improved infrastructure can support local economies, promote trade, and reduce the sense of isolation that often contributes to instability and conflict. Moreover, resilient infrastructure should incorporate climate change adaptation strategies. This includes building flood-resistant structures, improving water management systems, and creating early warning systems for natural disasters. These efforts will enhance the ability of communities in the WAP complex to withstand the environmental shocks that often drive displacement, conflict, and economic hardship. In tandem with these efforts, local communities must be consulted and involved in the planning and implementation of infrastructure projects to ensure that they meet their needs and priorities. By integrating local knowledge and expertise into infrastructure planning, governments and development partners can build more sustainable and effective systems that contribute to both security and development. A collaborative path towards stability. The future of the WAP complex depends on the collective efforts of governments, regional organizations, international partners, and local communities. While the challenges are immense, spanning security concerns, environmental degradation, political instability, and socioeconomic vulnerabilities, There is hope that with a coordinated and multifaceted approach, the region can begin to turn the tide. Addressing the complexities of the WAP complex requires solutions that balance security, development, environmental conservation, and governance. Regional integration, community engagement, robust legal frameworks, technological innovations, and long-term infrastructure investments will be the keys to building a stable, secure, and prosperous future for the WAP region. By fostering cooperation at all levels, from local communities to international stakeholders, there is a possibility of transforming the WAP complex into a symbol of resilience and peace. The road ahead is difficult, but with sustained effort and a commitment to holistic, inclusive solutions, the region can overcome its current challenges and move toward a more secure, prosperous, and sustainable future. Building stronger, regional and international networks. The success of efforts to address the complex issues surrounding the WAP complex relies heavily on the strength of regional and international networks. Collaborative, multi-stakeholder approaches that involve a diverse range of actors, governments, civil society organizations, the private sector, and international institutions, are necessary to address the root causes of instability and insecurity. Regional organizations such as ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Sahel Alliance must be strengthened to ensure they can serve as key drivers of regional peace and development initiatives. Regional cooperation between neighboring countries sharing the WAP complex is essential. These states must not only focus on security, but also work together on joint environmental protection efforts. Increased coordination between these countries can help ensure that conservation efforts in the WAP complex are not undermined by cross-border illicit activities such as arms trafficking, poaching, and human trafficking. A concerted effort to create transboundary protected areas and establish collaborative management structures would provide a more effective means of preserving the region's biodiversity while reducing opportunities for criminal actors. However, regional solutions alone are not enough. The international community must play an active role in supporting these initiatives, particularly in providing the financial resources and technical expertise necessary for the effective implementation of policies and programs. Global institutions, such as the United Nations and the World Bank, must step up their commitment to supporting peace, security, and development in the Sahel region. They must provide targeted funding for initiatives that integrate security and development efforts with environmental conservation. The G5 Sahel Force, for example, while facing significant challenges, continues to be a potential vehicle for coordinated regional action. Its mission to combat terrorism, arms trafficking, and organized crime in the Sahel should be complemented with a broader, more comprehensive framework for addressing the socio-economic drivers of insecurity. Regional actors must find a way to reinvigorate this force, strengthen its capabilities, and ensure that it works in tandem with development projects that target the root causes of instability. Enhancing diplomatic engagement and conflict prevention diplomacy plays a critical role in preventing the escalation of conflicts in the WAP complex and surrounding regions. Ongoing diplomatic efforts should focus on addressing the tensions between governments in the Sahel and fostering dialogue that seeks to bridge divides between local, national, and regional actors. In recent years, political instability, particularly in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, has undermined efforts at cooperation, but it has also opened the door for new diplomatic engagements. The involvement of international actors, including the United Nations, the European Union, and other diplomatic entities, is essential in supporting peace talks and negotiations. These actors must work with regional organizations to mediate disputes, broker peace agreements, and facilitate dialogue between governments, rebel groups, and local communities. Moreover, diplomatic efforts should not solely focus on crisis management, but also on long-term conflict prevention strategies. One area for enhanced diplomatic focus is on addressing the governance issues that fuel instability. Countries experiencing democratic backslides or authoritarian shifts should be encouraged to embrace more inclusive political processes that allow for greater participation from marginalized groups, including youth and women. Fostering a culture of good governance that emphasizes transparency, accountability, and the rule of law will help build stronger and more resilient states in the Sahel. The involvement of the private sector in promoting peace and stability in the region should also be encouraged. Corporations, particularly those involved in the extractive industries and natural resources, must be held accountable for their role in the region's development and security. Businesses can contribute to peace building by ensuring that their operations do not exacerbate local tensions, respecting environmental regulations, and providing economic opportunities for communities affected by insecurity. Public-private partnerships could provide innovative solutions for addressing both security and development challenges in the WAP complex, improving monitoring and evaluation of interventions. Effective monitoring and evaluation, M&E systems, are essential for ensuring that interventions in the WAP complex are achieving their intended outcomes. Given the complex and fluid nature of security, development, and environmental challenges in the region, M&E systems must be flexible, adaptive, and able to capture both short-term successes and long-term impacts. International organizations, donor agencies, and regional governments should prioritize the establishment of robust M&E frameworks for all major security, development, and conservation initiatives. This would allow stakeholders to track progress, identify challenges, and adjust strategies as needed. Regular assessments of the impacts of specific interventions on local communities, the environment, and security would help to ensure that resources are being used efficiently and that policies are responsive to changing conditions on the ground. Furthermore, M&E systems must be designed to include local communities in the process. Community-driven monitoring can provide valuable insights into the effectiveness of programs, ensuring that interventions are not only top-down, but also reflect the needs and priorities of the people most affected by conflict, insecurity, and environmental degradation. Securing long-term commitment and funding. Sustaining long-term peace and stability in the WAP complex will require a concerted effort from national governments, regional organizations, international partners, and local communities. One of the most significant challenges facing peace-building and conservation efforts in the region is securing adequate and sustained funding. International aid and investments have often been fragmented and short-term, resulting in a lack of continuity and follow-through. To address this, it is essential that a comprehensive financing strategy be developed that ensures the long-term sustainability of peace-building, development, and conservation programs in the WAP complex. This strategy should include not only traditional donor funding, but also innovative financing mechanisms such as public-private partnerships, impact investing, and climate finance. These sources of funding can provide more flexible and sustainable support for long-term projects. Additionally, governments in the region must take ownership of their development and security agendas by allocating greater resources to these critical areas. This includes increasing domestic investments in education, infrastructure, and security forces, as well as improving tax collection and reducing corruption to ensure that resources are effectively mobilized for development. Finally, the role of the African Development Bank, AFDB, and other regional financial institutions in supporting long-term development projects cannot be underestimated. These institutions have the potential to provide both technical and financial support for large-scale infrastructure projects, climate change adaptation programs, and initiatives aimed at enhancing regional security. A vision for the future of the WAP complex. The future of the WAP complex lies in its transformation from a region plagued by insecurity and criminal activity into a beacon of peace, prosperity, and environmental stewardship. While the challenges are daunting, the WAP complex represents an opportunity for innovative and collaborative solutions that address the complex interplay of security, development, and environmental issues. By strengthening regional cooperation, increasing international support, empowering local communities, and integrating climate change adaptation into broader peace-building efforts, the WAP Complex can become a model for sustainable development in West Africa. The road ahead will be difficult, but with a clear vision, collective action, and long-term commitment, the region can overcome its current challenges and build a more secure, stable, and prosperous future for its people and wildlife. Strengthening leadership and governance for sustainable peace. The leadership of African countries plays a pivotal role in determining the success or failure of peace and stability initiatives in regions like the WAP Complex. Strong visionary leadership is required to confront the complex issues of armed conflict, illicit trafficking, climate change, and economic insecurity that currently threaten the region. However, effective leadership goes beyond national borders and should extend to regional collaboration, as the WAP Complex's challenges are transnational in nature. African leaders must prioritize good governance and build trust with their citizens. Transparent, accountable, and inclusive governance is essential for long-term peace and development. This includes ensuring that the rule of law is upheld and human rights are respected. Strengthening democratic institutions, promoting the participation of women and youth in governance, and ensuring political stability will provide a more conducive environment for tackling the multifaceted crises in the WAP region. Moreover, African leaders must embrace a more collaborative approach to regional security. Working together through regional organizations like ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Sahel Alliance, they can create frameworks that integrate security, development, and environmental protection. It is crucial that these leaders move away from isolationist policies and adopt a more unified stance that addresses common challenges and fosters mutual support among African nations. African governments should also play a greater role in leveraging the continent's natural resources and human capital for sustainable development. By promoting policies that encourage diversification of the economy, investments in infrastructure, education, and technology, African leaders can reduce the economic drivers of insecurity and create more opportunities for their populations. Furthermore, addressing systemic corruption will ensure that resources are allocated for the greater good and not diverted for personal gain. A call to action for African leaders. African leaders must recognize the profound interconnectedness between security, development, and environmental sustainability in regions like the WAP Complex. They must take bold steps to strengthen regional cooperation, invest in long-term development strategies, and promote governance reforms that prioritize the well-being of their people. Leadership should focus on 1. Fostering regional collaboration. African countries must work together to strengthen security frameworks and address cross-border challenges such as arms trafficking, poaching, and extremist violence. Regional initiatives such as ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Sahel Alliance must be reinforced to ensure that collective action is prioritized over individual interests. 2. Investing in development and climate resilience. African leaders should prioritize long-term investments in sustainable development, especially in sectors such as agriculture, education, and infrastructure. By addressing the socio-economic vulnerabilities that drive conflict and criminality, leaders can reduce the allure of illicit activities and foster more peaceful communities. Adaptation to climate change is also critical for preventing environmental degradation and mitigating the risks associated with food insecurity and displacement. 3. Strengthening good governance and accountability. Transparent, accountable, and inclusive governance is the cornerstone of a stable and prosperous Africa. Leaders must prioritize the rule of law, fight corruption, and ensure that development projects serve the interests of all citizens. Engaging communities in decision-making processes will build trust in government institutions and increase public participation in peace-building efforts. 4. Empowering youth and women. African leaders must invest in youth education, job creation, and skills development to prevent radicalization and criminal involvement. Women's empowerment is equally important in peace-building and should be prioritized by incorporating women into political, social, and economic processes. 5. Enhancing international partnerships. While African leadership is essential, international support will remain critical for addressing the region's challenges. African leaders must work with international partners to ensure that aid is targeted at programs that integrate security with development, governance, and environmental conservation. Africa must be a partner in the global community, advocating for its interests while taking ownership of its development and security agenda. Key messages and summary. The WAP Complex and the broader Sahel region highlight the urgency of addressing the intertwined challenges of security, governance, development, and environmental sustainability. Transnational crime, arms trafficking, and the impacts of climate change threaten not only the region's wildlife, but also the livelihoods and security of its people. The path forward requires a holistic, collaborative approach that integrates security, development, and environmental stewardship. Regional cooperation is essential as the challenges facing the WAP complex extend beyond national borders. African leaders must strengthen governance, promote good policies, invest in sustainable development, and empower local communities to become active participants in the peace-building process. To succeed, African leaders must move beyond short-term, reactive measures and focus on long-term, integrated solutions that address both the symptoms and root causes of instability. Strengthening institutions, promoting inclusive governance, ensuring social and economic justice, and addressing climate change are all integral to achieving peace and stability in the WAP complex and across Africa. The call to action is clear. African leaders must take ownership of their challenges and work together to shape a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable future for their people. By doing so, they will not only secure the future of regions like the WAP complex, but also set a precedent for solving Africa's most pressing problems through unity, cooperation, and visionary leadership. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below with your thoughts on the situation in the WAP complex. If you want to stay informed about the latest developments across Africa, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Together, we make the difference in shaping Africa's future. See you in the next video.